Steven Spielberg cut Harrison Ford out of the movie because he felt as if that character was a distraction from Elliot's journey and kind of our overall POV, seeing this story through our protagonist's lens. So again, like, as much as you have a really strong character, a dynamic supporting character, if you can't find a great relationship to your protagonist, it's not actually going to be in service to your story.
If it doesn't serve your story or your character's growth, you got to cut it. Hey, welcome to the Kinolime podcast. See how I did there?
Yeah.
I know you like that, right?
I love it.
We got a great podcast today. This is like where we get to nerd out. We're not going to complain about film.
We're not talking about the industry.
No, we're not talking about the industry.
It's going to be great.
We're talking about the craft of screenwriting today.
Pure Kino today.
So we were thinking about how could we help y'all in 2026? We want to see the best spec market ever. We want to see dozens and dozens of screenplays sell for $1 million plus and launch careers left and right. We're here to help you hopefully be one of those people by, Danny, trimming your screenplay. That's what we're going to focus on today in the 2026 writing series. Each week we're going to give new notes, new ideas, thoughts on how to get your screenplay. But today we're going to talk about trimming that screenplay. Because one thing we find when we read through our submission phase and just through our normal yearly intake of screenplays that we devour, they tend to be a bit long in the tooth. But Danny, I want to give you the mic, the lav mic on
Thank you.
Your thoughts on this particular topic.
Yeah, it's something we find in pretty much every screenplay we read in the competition is that there is room to be a bit more economical with how you're using your characters, how you're using your page count, and also even in great screenplays, finding ways to really hone your focus and your protagonists. I'm excited to ask you, John, because I know like you've been hired on multiple occasions to do this exact thing, to cut down on page.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
I can't say the specific job, but I was brought in on a movie that was made where I think the screenplay was clocking in at 127, I think. Could be wrong. And I felt that we could get that thing down to around 113, which we did. So we were able to shave off like 14 pages without affecting the production. We weren't missing a beat. And that's something that I love to do personally, even on my own screenplays. Like, I tend to vomit a first draft. It's 127, 130 pages, but I just love to cut. Maybe too much. But we're going to give you some really great tips today to help you in your screenplay. If you felt that it's bloated, we do find, though, typically in the competition specifically, screenplays could probably cut between 8 to 15 pages. That's
At
a
least.
lot. That's a lot. And even with Mob Mentality, our 2.0 winner, which we're going out to directors immediately, which is another big update we'll give you, we found working with Eric that we could tighten that screenplay up even more so than it was.
It was already an extremely tight script.
Exactly. Yep. And Eric agreed, and we progressed, and it was amazing. So our first tip is cutting description. Bing! Let's go put the cutting description here. This is our first tip that we see all the time in screenplays. 6, 7, 8 lines of scene description. So after your scene heading, like interior so-and-so, you have your next thing is the scene description. What's going on in the scene? We tend to see that constantly to 6 to 8, maybe even sometimes 10 sentence mark. I was always taught to keep it 3 or 4 sentences. We're going to have an example though today, Zodiac by James Vanderbilt. It was an amazing screenplay. If you haven't read Zodiac, you got to read it. But we took a scene of description and we bloated it, what we typically see, just so you can understand and see kind of what we get on our side of Kinolime and what James did in the draft. So I'm going to read the bloated version right here. Interior, Vaughn's basement, night. The door creaks open. Vaughn and Graysmith stand at the top of a rickety wooden staircase, dusty from years of neglect. We can hear the sound of water dripping somewhere down in the darkness, somewhere unseen. Vaughn flicks a light switch. A naked bulb snaps on somewhere below. Very little light illuminates the dark space, leaving the corners dark and the contents hidden. Now, in a book, that's probably great. But what the writer's doing here, the fictional writer, is they're adding too much to the scene, right? Like, just we're gonna go to the first thing. The door creaks open. Actually, I don't mind that so much. I don't mind if you're adding a little audible. Vaughn and Graysmith stand at the top of a rickety wooden staircase, dusty from years of neglect. there's a lot going on there, which we don't need. We can be more economical in how we, write the scene description. We're going to show you now what James did in his draft. So we have the 7th sentence here, and then a snap of my finger. We're going right to the nice and lean James Vanderbilt description. I'll read it again. Interior, Vaughn, basement, night. The door creaks open. Vaughn and Graysmith stand at the top of a rickety wooden staircase. We hear water dripping somewhere down in the darkness. Vaughn flicks a switch and a naked bulb snaps on somewhere below. Very little light. It evokes the same thing, right? If you're comparing the both, I know they talk about it being a rickety wooden staircase, but do we need to know dusty from years of neglect?
Yeah, we already know. It's rickety.
Rickety, and also, it's nothing that's pertinent to the scene. James does a fantastic job of keeping it around that 4-sentence mark as opposed to 7. And I know that it sounds, it's 4 to 7. But over the course of 120 pages, let's say, that's a lot of pages that you're going to be cutting. So every time you look at your scene description, I want you to count the lines, and I want you to know, is it 4, maybe 5 or less? And if it's 7, 8, whatever, see if there's ways to tighten it up.
Yep.
Without saying every little detail that you need. The director's going to do that. It's going to be on the set design. You want to evoke a mood and emotion, but I don't think you need to overdo it.
And especially, there's something fascinating. If you've seen Zodiac, this is the best scene in the film. Unquestionably, when they go down the stairs, what makes it so incredible, and I think this is a bit genre specific, but when you're looking for tension, like, you want to leave a lot of the description kind of up to the interpretation of the reader,
yes.
right? It's what makes the scene so great when you're watching it is, like, whoever's watching, it is not spelled out to you, like, what could possibly happen, and your brain goes crazy imagining, like, what are they about to do to Jake Gyllenhaal down here?
I know. Best scene in the movie.
Yep.
We'll do one more example from the bloated version. While talking, he guides Graysmith to a bookshelf in the far left-hand corner of the basement. The bookshelf is full of tomes and volumes, old and leather-bound, sagging under its weight. Vaughn pulls one hardbound volume from the middle shelf and begins flipping through the pages until he stops somewhere about 2/3 through. Graysmith looks around at the shadows and nervous and anxious. This is the bloated version. Now we're going to go back to the James Vanderbilt version. Bing! They finally stop by an overstuffed bookshelf. Vaughn pulls one hand-bound volume from it and begins flipping through the pages. Graysmith looks around nervous. Again, I understand the desire to want to explain every detail, but look what Vanderbilt did there. Minimal, to the point. We get it. Overstuffed bookshelf. Great. He pulls one hand-bound volume. We know it's hand-bound. He flips through it. The other guy's looking around nervous. Perfect. Again, from a 7-sentence description to 3. Now, in those 2 paragraphs we just shaved off, 10 sentences, right? That's going to add up over the course of your screenplay. I know I mentioned that, but I really want to drive home. Every time you have a scene description, after your first or second pass, when you want to get into that area where you want to trim your screenplay down, really look at the scene description, see where you can tighten things up, say the most in the least amount of words.
Yeah, and it also just comes down to the intention, right? Like, you want each description sentence you have to, like, evoke a feeling or kind of give off something specific to your characters, right? Like, what you see at this is Vaughn pulls one hand-bound volume from it and begins flipping through the pages. In the bloated version, again, adding that it's sagging under its own weight, adding that he's flipping through specific parts of the book.
Unnecessary.
All we're trying to do is show that it seems like he's buying time, right? Yeah. It seems like he's looking for something to do, and maybe he's hiding something.
Sure.
Be subtle and try to give every word in your description real meaning behind it.
Yeah. D, you have our second tip for how to trim your screenplay.
Yeah, this is something that, whether it be when I'm giving coverage or just, reading any one of the scripts, that come through the competition on my own, what you find a lot in screenplays is a large supporting cast where you could kind of easily identify you really don't need a couple of these characters, right?
So the tip that Danny's saying is cutting character.
Yes. You really look through your script and see if there's any supporting characters that the story foundationally doesn't change if you don't have them there. Mm-hmm. You will find a lot when you're reading screenplays, especially in ensembles, that you will usually have one guy who is just kind of there to reaffirm people's emotions or to tell you, you're right, this is how you feel.
Yep.
It is shocking the amount of scripts you will find where that character exists. Go through, see if a character doesn't actually have a real purpose to your protagonist. If they don't, you probably don't need them.
So I'm going to give you a little tip. I'm going to get a piece of paper here. This is something that I do. And I would say on your first couple of drafts, it's okay to throw in characters. Like you gotta feel it out. But once you start getting to the trimming phase, this is something that I like to do. So I would put the main character. We're going to call the main character Michael in the middle. And this is what I do. I will throw up Michael in the center, and I'll have every character sort of around him. And if they are not interacting in a place where they're influencing back and forth, pushing Michael for growth, plot, a distraction, intention, obstacle, they're gone. So a really cool thing that I like to do is put your main character in the middle, draw a little circle or square, and then do little lines to every character you have. And you'll start to see visually if a character is really interacting and working with the main character or just really being fat.
Yeah, and also, like, to that point, just think about plainly, can you easily identify, as the writer yourself, like, what is this character doing that's, in this instance, challenging your protagonist, your Michael, right? If you're not gripped by what that character brings to the table, you can probably cut that character and find whatever you find compelling about them elsewhere in another character. A great example of this that I actually didn't know about until I was kind of researching for this episode was Harrison Ford was initially in E.T. He played Elliot's principal at school. And again, like, Steven Spielberg cut Harrison Ford out of the movie because he felt as if that character was a distraction from Elliot's journey and kind of our overall POV, seeing this story through our protagonist's lens. So again, like, as much as you have a really strong character, a dynamic supporting character, if you can't find a great relationship to your protagonist, it's not actually going to be in service to your story.
If it doesn't serve your story or your character's growth, you got to cut it. There's a term you'll hear, kill your darlings. This is one of those moments. I didn't know about that HF. That's interesting.
Yeah, if you look through, I mean, there's a shocking amount of amazing performances that have been cut from great movies for this reason.
You do hear that a lot. Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why they're so great. Moving on,
This
John?
is something that drives me crazy, but as a writer, I suffer from is exposition. Sure. So we are writers, and we always want to say what we feel through the characters, but sometimes, again, in your first couple of drafts, it's okay to vomit out the exposition, the dialogue, but there comes a point where, like, we really got to trim that, and we got to, like, say the least amount, possible, or maximize the impact with the least amount of words.
100%.
Something that was taught to me by the great Fred LeBeau was when you write your dialogue, underneath it, like, what are you trying to say? Like, and then, like, say it without saying. It's like a hard exercise to do, but we're going to show you an example of a bloated exchange here that our great Mira wrote up this morning on a scene here. So, exterior, grocery store day. Gareth is holding up 2 boxes of cereal, trying to make the tough decision between Cheerios or Cinnamon Toast Crunch. He notices someone from the corner of his eye. It's Luke, an old friend he hasn't seen in years. They were inseparable once upon a time, until a girl got in the way of that friendship. We'll get into that scene description in a second. He did that on purpose, but let's get into the dialogue part. I'm going to be Luke. Gareth?
Gareth.
Cool. All right, Gareth, is that you?
Luke, hey man, what's it been? 3-4 years?
I'd say 5 at least, ever since all that stuff went down with Jessica.
Yeah, I'm sorry things ended like they did.
Like they did, that's one way to describe the massive brawl at Samantha Sweet 16.
Well, I'm back in town for a few days. Got the week off from my corporate job in Chicago. We should hang out. It's good to see you, man.
End scene. So we're going to stop there. Now we're going to do the tighter version, and we're going to show you how a scene that you may not think is exposition, how it is expositional, and how to change it. Okay. Exterior, grocery store, day. Gareth is holding up 2 boxes of cereal, trying to make the tough decisions between Cheerios or Cinnamon Toast Crunch. That first line is fine. This is where we trim. He notices someone from the corner of his eye, the very person he was hoping not to bump into, Luke. See here how it went from a 4-line description to 2. That's something that you keep going, but we're going to get into the exposition here, or the lack of exposition. Gareth?
Luke, hey man. Been a minute.
For real? You back in town?
Just for a few days, visiting the family, you know?
And that's it. So what we said in, I don't know, 7 lines, 3/4 of a page, we said in a quarter. So normal dialogue exchange you see all the time, like, hey, what's going on? How's the weather? The great John Himes, he's a director, amazing guy. He's attached to a movie that I wrote. And he said his father, Peter Himes, was a, famous director. He did the sequel to 2001: Space Odyssey. He told me that when you write a scene with dialogue, get rid of the first 2 exchanges and the last 2, and then everything in the middle is necessary. I always love that note because it is like you normally might enter a scene saying, hey, how are you? The weather's great, blah, blah, blah. Cut it. Just get right to it. That's something that I think when you're thinking of exposition, how to change it, that's the first thing you can probably do is get rid of the first 2 or 3 or whatever and the last 3. But again, what we say here in 4 lines of dialogue, quick lines too, is so minimal compared to the bloated exposition scene prior.
It's something that
drives you crazy.
It drives me crazy. I always feel like a broken record because anytime I'm giving notes or writing coverage or talking about a story that kind of suffers this fate of having a lot of expository dialogue, I always write the same note, which is like, give your dialogue subtext, right?
Yeah.
Like what makes good dialogue good is that like every line, it's not what they're saying, it's like what they're not saying to each other, right? And it's what makes performances really interesting for actors, right? Is like being able to have something you're saying and then having what that mean actually be a whole different thing. When you have things like, hey man, what's it been, 3-4 years? And just acknowledging things that don't really matter to the story or that you can explain in creative ways, you make that impossible to achieve. Yeah. So again, try to find subtext in your dialogue. It'll make it awesome. Yeah, we're gonna do a video on subtext. That's like, it's kind of one of those things that it's a little hard to grasp, but if you can master it, my gosh, do you like take over. And you know what? Speaking of Harrison Ford, we're gonna play a clip. Just Ron, please get the clip ready for Empire Strikes Back when he's about to be carbon freeze right here.
I love you.
I know.
All right, so see that right there? Princess Leia just said, I love you. And he goes, I know. Yeah. That is subtext to a T. It's his character. He didn't say, I love you too, blah, 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 blah. We're going to fight them together. He's like, I know. Yep. And that's everything you need to know about the character through subtext. That's a little nugget. We'll talk about that in our next video or a video about subtext. But that might help you think about when you're writing your dialogue, what to say without saying it. 100%. Now we're going to go into something that I personally love is our 4th tip, removing scenes from your screenplay. This is something that I love to do in my own work or love to work with writers on is find the scenes that are not, again, we keep talking about this, servicing the plot or pushing the plot forward or revealing and pushing character. Think of your story as a Jenga game piece, wooden block. If you can remove a scene and the Jenga your story still holds up, it doesn't need to be there. This is so hard to do. I used to hate removing scenes as a writer, but now I love it because it's like so cathartic. Like I'm getting rid of the fat, really trimming it down. So one tool that you can do is when you're going through the scenes, is it servicing the plot or servicing the character? If it doesn't, and you can remove it, and the reader can bridge the gap between A and B without anything in between, gotta go. Gotta go on the floor. It's cutting room floor. It comes back to something that we said earlier about killing your darlings. The thing, though, that you'll find when you have a scene you adore and it might just not perfectly fit, you'll be amazed by the amount of creativity and new ideas that spark from removing things that actually are roadblocks that you're afraid of getting rid of. It can totally reorient your stories in ways you would never imagine until you do that. And also something within removing scenes, something that we see a lot is where there are multiple locations that could be truncated or combined to a single scene. Again, that's going to save you page space, right? So if you're doing 4 scenes, right? Interior, office, exterior, park, interior, lunchroom. If that same 3-4 scenes can be done in one location, you're going to be saving on scene description and scene heading, which could be pages out of your screenplay. And I also think it's better for the reader personally if I'm in one location. I don't have to keep going, wait, where am I? I'm on the plane.
Takes
now
you
I'm
out
on
of
the
it every
ground.
time.
Takes you out every time. I don't know how you feel about that.
I agree 100% because like one thing that I'm actually really bad at is like keeping track of where I am in the story. I'm just focusing on our characters. There's a lot of times I'll be gripped. I'll be like, oh my God, that whole thing happened here. I didn't even know. So yeah, I agree fully. It's something John and I talk about all the time, which is like, again, forgetting even the economics of the movie. If you could ground your characters somewhere and like, again, focus on the characters. Like it's something we talk about a lot. Like I see all the time, you'll find writers that are so worried about world building that, again, like all the type of things that we've been talking about so far come from a focus on world building and not character, right?
Yeah.
You build these rich worlds that generally need really colorful sporting characters, an exposition to explain, and multiple locations. And then you look up and you generally find a protagonist that is like reacting to this big, colorful, vast world rather than one that is like seizing a rich, colorful journey and character arc, you know?
And something that I was taught as well is like when to enter your story,
Yep.
right? So we do want to give all the great backstory and the ordinary world, as you'll hear, but sometimes like your movie starts at a certain point. You know, and it might be hard to find, but when does your story really begin? So look at your screenplay. You might be able to cut the first 5 pages. Maybe you
100%.
don't need it. Maybe your story really picks up on like page 5. And then everything else is gone because it was all just like fluff and like maybe a little backstory. Like it's same thing when you go enter your scene at the latest point possible, start your story at the latest point possible.
Couldn't agree more. And then, I mean, I think we hit all the main points, but something we were talking about before we started recording. And again, there are worlds where this is useful, but for most stories, if you have a lot of flashbacks, if you have a lot of voiceover, again, be as economical with those as you possibly can. You usually will not need them.
Again, that's another thing. We'll talk about voiceover because you see this all the time, and I'm guilty of doing it as well. Your voiceover can be used. I'm not saying don't use voiceover. There's like camps on both sides that are like, you know, the Scorsese defenders and the non-voiceover people. I'd say use voiceover, but use it sparingly. If your voiceover is using to describe what we've already seen, there's no need for it. As much as I would love to have voiceover. Who doesn't want to have like Ray Liotta talking about childhood? But, you know, not everyone needs that. Not every screenplay needs that. You can maybe do it in the bookend, a little voiceover at the beginning, a little voiceover at the end, kind of like Stand By Me, right at the beginning and the end. But if people are using voiceover throughout, which we see all the time, there's like 15 pages you could probably get rid of just removing voiceover. Or if you're going to use voiceover, don't have it describe what we see.
Yeah.
Use it to do the moments, an unreliable narrator, or other things that throw us off a little as a reader, but really look at your voiceover and see, is it truly necessary? Do we already see it? Is it something that can be conveyed on screen?
Yep.
And I think you'll save a lot of pages that way.
It's something like my last note on that is sometimes I'll read a script with a lot of voiceover, doing what you said, where they're kind of narrating what's happening. And it almost starts feeling like I'm watching a Nat Geo documentary, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Morgan Freeman in the background, like talking about like Earth and stuff.
Oh, here they come. Yeah. So be spare, like just do what John said, right? He knows this stuff well.
That should be a t-shirt.
Do what John says.
And our last note for the day, D.
Our last
number
note
5
is, again, do not be a director on the page, right? If you are trying to shop a script and convince people to make it with you, odds are having all sorts of directorial notes within your description.
Explain what a directorial note is.
So let's go straight into our example here.
Great.
What I pulled up is a page that actually did not make the final cut of Midsommar, but it's a great example of this, which is a cut scene from Ari Aster's Midsommar.
Did he write that, or did he have a co-writer?
No, he wrote it.
Great. So props to Ari Aster.
Okay, so we're going to go straight in. This is an airplane scene that did not, I believe, make the final cut of the film. Interior airplane in flight, minutes later. We are wide, looking down the length of the plane. We track forward, drifting over the heads of passengers. In the background, Danny exits the lavatory and returns to her seat. Christian is seated beside her at the window. We have arrived at a profile close-up of them, the window in the background. Christian takes Danny's hand and smiles at her. It's clear she's been crying, but she hides it behind a determinedly casual, all is well expression. Christian goes along with the pretending and looks out the window. We have begun a slow zoom past them, toward the window. The window soon fills the frame. We are flying over the beautiful terrain. We have entered Sweden. John, what's your take on that?
So we see this all the time. And again, man, I'm so guilty of all this. When I started out, I did the same thing. Maybe not the camera angles and techniques, but I would do a zoom or a wide, like the more minimal stuff. Yeah, I get it. We want to, like, you're seeing it in your head and you're really trying to evoke it on the page, but you don't need to. Like, that's not your job. And it's just going to take the reader, whether it's us, executives, out of the read. And you want to keep the executives, director, producer, whoever, in the read. You want them
100%.
glued. I love a screenplay where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did I just read this in one sitting and I'm not checking my phone? I do that if I'm in a movie, if I'm checking my watch, my phone, I know that the movie's not getting me. So same thing in a screenplay. You want to keep us in the scene. If you start talking about why, I mean, look here. We're going to look up here. We are wide.
Yep.
Then we track forward.
In the
background. The profile close-up of them. Window in the background. The window fills the frame. We zoom past them. Way too much going on there. Again, we know Ari Aster was, Ari Aster is Ari Aster. He's going to direct this, but we use this as an example. We see this all the time.
Yep. And the difference is if you're coming off of the most profitable film ever for a new studio and you get a blank check to make an auteur film, he's not writing this for others, right? He's writing this as a roadmap to himself. If you read Parasite, you see the same thing, right? If you are looking to convince people to buy your film, give you financing, attach themselves, and you're a first-time filmmaker, or you don't have a blank check as an auteur, like, there's really only a couple lines here that actually evoke character. Do not write like you are Ari Aster or Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah. You will be.
Yes.
You will be.
But until then, focus on really just getting down into the nitty-gritty of character in your description. You do not need to explain your directorial pursuits on the page.
So, look, this is what we found as something that when we read our screenplays here at the competition, which we're gearing up for the 3.0, dropping in a few days for submissions, we want your screenplays ready and tight and to grip us. So these are 5 rules that, or should I say thoughts, ideas, suggestions that we think could help you. If there's anything we miss, anything that helpful tips you found through your writing career, I want to know personally so I can be a better writer. So does Danny.
Yep.
Hit us up in the comments, email us or whatever. However you want to get in contact with us, we would love to hear from you. I want to know if we missed something, if there's better ideas out there, or something that could help. Let us know. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video. But we really, truly believe in your screenplay. We want you to write the best screenplay possible. And the first thing that I think most people look at is page count, unfortunately.
100%.
So it's the nature of the business. It's the nature of the beast. I know it's annoying. The 120-page mark used to be the barometer. Now, unfortunately, it's way less. Not saying you can't do 120, but if you're trying to get someone's attention and if you can be minimal and economical, it does behoove you to go through your screenplay and really get rid of every, punctuation, anything that's not necessary, a word here or there, just to make it tighter. We really appreciate y'all. Hit us up, like us, subscribe, whatever it is you do. We have the competition 3.0 coming up in a few days where your submissions will be ready. Actually, by the time this airs, it'll already be live. So thank you for submitting your screenplays. And we'll hit you next time in the next screenplay series. This was fun.
This was really fun.
Okay.
I had a great time.
All right. Thank you. Oh, before I go, I'm going to do a little John Stewart here.
Oh, my
Try to
God.
get this here. Ready? I'm going to see if I can hit the camera. And we're out.
Oh
my
that's
gosh.
amazing. Yeah. All right. See you guys. Thanks so much.
Bye. Our previous 2 competition winners, The Waif in year 1 and Mob Mentality year 2, are going into production this year. Yes, in 2026, we are making 2 movies, The Waif and Mob Mentality. If you win this year, you're next. We're making your film next. So please, please, please get your screenplays ready, sharpen your pencils, get the keyboards going, get your screenplay submitted to kinolime.com, create an account, ask questions. We're here to answer anything that you have to throw our way. We want to hear from you. And I want to read your screenplay. So please go to kinolime.com, submit your screenplay, and we cannot wait to get this competition rolling.